Looking to invest? Start your journey by exploring exchange-traded funds with Global X ETFs. Exchange-traded funds, or ETFs for short, create baskets of stocks, bonds, and other assets that you can buy in a single trade. Global X specializes in ETFs that track emerging trends, like the rise of artificial intelligence, as well as strategies aimed to generate income potential. Visit globalxetfs.com to discover how you can get started.
This is More Money with economist Steve Moore. Now, Steve Moore.
Okay, folks, let's get right down to it. As promised, I have my friend, Corey Lewandowski, who is one of the great political consultants of all time. He is the one who was the first political campaign manager for Donald Trump. When people laughed, Corey, people laughed that Donald Trump was going to run for president. And boy, you guys just like a tornado just went through the Republican field and then won the election. So, Corey, a great admirer of yours, as so many of our listeners are. Thanks for joining.
Well, Steve, it's always great to be with you. You know, you've been there. Took a little convincing, Steve. I won't lie, but then you came around quick after that meeting in Trump's house.
Yeah, that's right.
Ever since.
That's so true. I mean, I always tell Corey, I did not have a positive opinion of Donald Trump when I went into that room with Larry Kudlow, and we spent an hour and a half with Trump, and I walked out just dazzled by this guy. He is amazing in person. I know a lot of our listeners have met Donald Trump personally. So, Corey, you are back with the Trump campaign, thank God, because your advice is so sound. And you guys going to win this thing?
Oh, Steve, we're going to win this thing. Look at Donald Trump is so dialed in, and I know that your listeners know this. When you look at what he did in New York this week, 17,000 people in the arena where the Islanders play, but more than that, 45,000 outside. Then he goes to Gutfeld.
Wow.
And we see a different side of Donald Trump, that funny, self-deprecating humor side, which I love that people get to see that on Gutfeld.
Yes.
And when he got that belt, being the people's president, he's still talking about it. Tyrus gave him that belt, and it was really
right.
And the president is very, very dialed in right now in this campaign with 45 days to go. We're in North Carolina today. We're in Pennsylvania Monday. We're in Georgia Tuesday. We're back in North Carolina, I think, Wednesday. Then we're back in Wisconsin on Saturday, and it's now public. Donald Trump is going to the Georgia-Alabama football game on Saturday next week. So welcome to Tuscaloosa.
Oh, my God, that is so cool. Well, he is a man of the people, no doubt about it. And so let's see. I'm looking at these polls, and you may have your internal polls, but, I'm looking at the public polls, and they're showing this is right now pretty much a toss-up race, although I think the American people are going to see through what a phony Kamala Harris is. But nonetheless, it's a very, very tight race, just as you ran in 2016, and then just sprinted to the finish line at the end of that race. And so I want to tell you that the one thing that worries me, Corey, and I want your reaction and what the game plan is. I'm worried about women voters, the female vote. I'm looking at the polling, and it shows a pretty big gender gap. And what is the strategy to win back working class women? And also, I was in one of the affluent suburbs of Chicago this past week, and I saw a lot of Kamala Harris signs on the lawns there. And so what's going on there? What does Trump have to do to persuade women that he is the superior candidate for their future?
So, Steve, there's a couple things. Listen, in the big picture national race, according to Rasmussen, Donald Trump has anywhere from a 6 to 8 point lead. Now, that doesn't matter because this is not a national election.
Right. That's
right. What it is a state-based election. So let me give you some statistics as of today. As of today, and I'm going to give you a historical perspective, Steve, from where we were just 4 years ago against Joe Biden. At this point in the race, Joe Biden had a 6.5 point lead on the Real Clear Politics average nationwide. But specifically in the battleground states of Wisconsin, we're running 5.8 points better today. In Pennsylvania, 3.4% better. In North Carolina, 2.3. In Michigan, 5.8. In Arizona, 6.3. Steve, the reason those things matter is because in every battleground state across the country, we are running better today than we did 4 years ago. And when you look 8 years ago, which I know is a long time, against Hillary Clinton, At this point in the race, Hillary Clinton had a 1-point national lead, and we know how close that race was. So how does this come down to the same 3 states, which is if Donald Trump wins Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, the race is over? How do you get those independent women, to your question?
Yes.
Because, Steve, I believe that women, much to the chagrin of Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey, are not monolithic. They're not. They care about the same issues you do, which I've got the book right in front of me, Trumponomics. Okay, I've got it right in front of me. They care about their family's economic safety and security. So, inside America, the America First plan to revive our economy, Steve, this hasn't changed, right? These women care about being able to put food on their table and clothes on their kids' backs and fuel in their cars and maybe hoping to get a vacation. But they know that for the last 3.5 years, that dream is gone. So, yes, they understand that Kamala Harris is a quote-unquote historic candidate. But remember, Hillary Clinton lost the women vote in 2016 because it wasn't just about a woman voting for a woman. It's about who's best for them and their families. And from an economic perspective, Donald Trump is best. And from a national and a homeland security perspective, Donald Trump is best. So I believe while there's a gender gap today, the ballots are out in a number of these states already. People are already voting. And in 45 days, voting is going to end, and Donald Trump is going to win.
So I take your point, in the Moore household, my wife does all the finances, Corey, and I think that's pretty common in a lot of homes. She's the kitchen table person who looks at, how much is coming in, how much is going out, how are we going to pay the tuition, how are we going to pay for the groceries. And sometimes I come home from work literally, and she's staring at me, glaring at me. She goes, "You have no idea how much things cost. Blah, blah, blah. Look at how much our utility bill is going up. Look how much our mortgage payment's gone up. Look how much, our grocery bill has gone up." And I would think there are a lot of women in that same situation who are just so frustrated by by the way, my wife, like so many other women, don't even believe the inflation rate's 20%. They think it's 50%.
Because I see it every day, Steve. And what we see is whether it's the price of eggs or the price of fuel for your vehicle, or where I live in the Northeast, home heating oil. We're coming into that season again, right?
Yes.
And so what you're going to have is families who literally have to make the decision, am I going to heat my home? Am I going to put gas in my car or food on my table? And, we don't even have to talk about the price of prescription drugs and what, this administration has done on behalf of Big Pharma, right? So we've got issues here, Steve, that supersede race or religion or ethnicity, because at the end of the day, they're pocketbook issues. And people historically vote for what is in their own best interest from a financial perspective. And everybody knows what was in their best interest, which was Donald Trump in the White House for 4 years. They had more money in their pockets. We had the lowest unemployment rate in American history at the time.
Yep.
And so that's what people want to return to. And Steve, this isn't this, altruistic, this was my grandparents' 60 years ago JFK deal, okay? This is 3.5 years ago, people can remember. And that's what they hearken back to, and that's why I believe people are going to vote for their wallets first, and number 2, they're going to vote for their own safety and security, which includes a border wall on the southern border to keep us safe.
So I'm talking to Corey Lewandowski, who is a top political advisor to the Trump campaign, ran the 2016 campaign, one of the great political upsets of all time. I don't know how you did it, Corey, but you had a great candidate in Donald Trump. But I wanted to tell you something and get your reaction to it. I remember 2016 when you invited Larry Kudlow and I and some others to come to the Hofstra debate, the first debate against Hillary Clinton. And I remember we walked out of that debate hall, depressed, because let's face it, Trump did not do a very good job in that debate. And we're like, Trump can't win after this. It was just a bad performance. But then he came back in the second debate, did better, you may recall. And then the third debate, he delivered the knockout blow. Remember that?
Of course.
Yeah. So I want your reaction to this. I feel strongly that Donald Trump has to get back on the stage with Kamala. I think he was fine, but I also think he could have done better, Corey, frankly. I think there were a lot of punches that he could have delivered that could have been, those knockout blows that didn't happen. And so I want to see them debate again. I think a lot of our listeners would. What do you think? Is it going to happen, do you think? And do you think it's wise?
So a couple things, Steve. Look, I was there with the president at the last debate, and I think his closing summation was
great.
on.
Fantastic.
Okay?
Yes.
And if he would have stayed on that message the entire time, knockdown, home run, right, grand slam, knockout punch.
Right.
But what happened was, and you know this, the ABC News anchors injected themselves into the conversation.
Oh, I know.
They were
Terrible.
fact-checking Donald Trump, and they were fact-checking him wrong. And so he debates three people on the stage. He gives factual, correct information, and they say, no, you're wrong. She lies, and they let it go. So the problem I have, Steve, is when I watched, and I was there with the president on the CNN debate with Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, and I don't normally, praise these two. They did a yeoman's job. They did a great job. They let the candidates speak.
Yes.
Obviously, Donald Trump destroyed Joe Biden, knocked him out of the race, and called it a day.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris refuses for a Fox News debate. She will not debate on Newsmax. She will not debate on the more conservative outlets because she wants to go back to NBC or CBS that has a vested interest now, because of what Donald Trump has done to them, of going after Donald Trump. And so, look, if we could have an unbiased, a fair opportunity to articulate his policy positions, which are very different than hers, then absolutely. But I just don't think it exists, Steve.
So one of the ideas that we've been pushing, and I think I would like your reaction to this, Corey, is how about putting Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on the stage for 60, 75 minutes, no moderator, just back and forth, the old Lincoln Douglas kind of debate format. I think Trump would be unbelievably good at that.
Oh, look, he's incredible at this. And Steve, your audience knows this, whether he's doing podcasts or he's doing town hall meetings like we did this week with Sarah Huckabee Sanders out in Michigan, right? Or he's just going out and talking to people via his rallies like he's going to do today in North Carolina. He continues to answer questions. He continues to lay out his policies. And here's the opposite. Kamala Harris goes on a very friendly Oprah Winfrey show, and when she's asked one difficult question, she says the word America 9 times in a sentence thinking that that's the answer. So, Kamala Harris has not been challenged. Tim Walz has not been challenged. And my question with 45 days to go is, when is the national media going to hold her feet to the fire and say, you have not answered when you became in favor of fracking. You have not answered when you changed your position on the border wall, or when you're now in favor of no tax on tips. And Tim Walz, you have not told us why you lied about carrying a weapon into war. It's not a grammatical error, Steve. It's called a lie.
Yeah.
So it's so hard because I'm so close to the campaign here and I'm traveling with the president every day. But to not have a fair and honest media is really a disservice to the American people.
It sure is. That is absolutely true. And I was talking to Sean Hannity the other day, and of course Sean is a great reporter and great as a Fox News anchor. But he was saying that his frustration is a lot of Americans don't even know some of the things that you just mentioned, that she has historically been in favor of, banning fracking. She's been in favor of Medicare for all. She's been in favor of reparations payments. She's been in favor of the Green New Deal. She's been she had the most liberal voting record of any senator. Did you know this, Corey? She was even to the left of Bernie Sanders in the Senate.
It's incredible. And nobody
but
knows
people
that.
don't know it.
She says she's a gun owner, but she's also said mandatory guns, right? We'll take your guns away. And now she's saying, she tells Oprah Winfrey I'm a gun owner. And not one journalist has gone back to her and said, what type of gun do you own? Not one. She has no idea, Steve, right? Does she own a Colt 45? Does she own a snub-nose 38? Does she own a long gun? She has no idea. For her to say she owns a gun, you and I both know, is just nonsensical.
But my bigger point, I agree with you, but my bigger point is the American people, they're not like, I'm like people like me and you who pay attention to this stuff, 24/7. So they don't know this about Kamala Harris because the media doesn't report it. And that's my frustration, that I think if Americans really knew what her history has been, I mean, I can't think of one dingbat left-wing idea that she's opposed to.
She supported them all. Them all. And instead, Steve, what is the mainstream media doing? The New York Times wrote a story about me that says I'm a chaos agent, an agent of chaos. I said, I'm a volunteer on a presidential campaign, and the Washington Post wants to write stories because they don't want to dig in and do their jobs because they're bought and paid for, and they are extensions of the Democratic Party.
So, Corey, we just have 1 or 2 more minutes. I'm just so thankful for you coming on. I'm talking to Corey Lewandowski, he's a political consultant extraordinaire. We're helping Donald Trump. So we've got we've got 40 some days still to go. How is the president holding up? I mean, I worked a bit on the 2016 campaign. I'd spend a day or two with him on the plane, and I'd be so exhausted after 1 or 2 days of doing that. And is he going to be able to make it to the finish line? I mean, he's a kind of superhuman, but he's getting older. Is he going to be able to how's his mood? How is his energy level? Tell us how he's feeling.
Steve, we were in Washington, D.C. He gave 2 speeches in Washington, D.C. the other night as it related to America and Israel's relationships, okay? We were supposed to be back in Palm Beach at midnight that night after the 2 speeches and the other events we had done. We landed at 1:30 in the morning instead. And he gets off the plane and says, okay, fellas, what time are we meeting? We said, sir, the first meeting's at 7. He says, why so late? Meaning 7 a.m. Okay? And by the way, at 6:15, I get a phone call from the president. So I get back to my place. I went to bed for about 3 hours, and he's already calling me. So you know this guy. He has no off switch, and that's why he can get more things done for the American people. As he sits in that Oval Office, he's going to get more done before he's even inaugurated, Stephen. What he's talked about is Middle East peace, getting our hostages back, getting this war ended, because world leaders respect Donald Trump. That's why you have seen Iran decide to hack our campaign and give those secrets to Kamala Harris. They're begging for her because under the Biden administration, they got very rich. They got very rich under Biden. Under Donald Trump, they were devastated, crushed.
We have 60 seconds more. One last question. There's been at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 assassination attempts against Donald Trump, but it doesn't seem to really affect him. I mean, most of us as mere humans would be shrinking violets after that, but do you feel that this has affected him in any way? And maybe made him a little closer to God in terms of, those bullets missing him. But what do you think?
Look, I do think it made him closer to God. See, we saw that when he walked onto the convention hall floor for the first time after the Butler, Pennsylvania event. That said, it's a scary time out there. And the lapse in the Secret Service and the fact that he didn't have a full protective presidential detail until Tuesday of this week is shameful. No one's been fired because of it.
Amazing.
The director got to resign. What an outrage.
Yeah. You are so right. Corey Lewandowski, I'm so glad you were on the team. It is critical that Donald Trump win this election for the future of our country. Tell Donald Trump that I know our WABC listeners, the vast majority of them are so praying for him to win this election, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. And I know you'll probably be working those 18-hour a day between now and November 6th as well. And all of us have to do that, right, Corey? We all have to do our job to get our people out to win this election.
Steve, I got one sign on my desk. It says, do your job. I know what my job is. He knows what his job is. You know what your job is. By the way, come on the plane with the Steve, spend a couple days, see what it's like, and you will see that there's no off switch on him, so you are welcome anytime.
All right. Corey Lewandowski, a superstar. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. This is the More Money Show. We'll be right back.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search. Match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply.